It was a calm Saturday morning on my sprawling ranch, the kind of quiet that feels like the world itself is holding its breath. The sun was just peeking over the rolling hills, casting long shadows across my pastures, where my cattle lazily grazed and my K9 patrols made their rounds. I was sipping coffee on my porch, enjoying the peace I'd worked years to build, when I noticed a familiar figure striding across my driveway. HOA Karen. Karen had always been a thorn in my side, a woman obsessed with rules she barely understood and authority she didn't possess. But this time, she had outdone herself. She marched right up to my property, clipboard in hand, muttering about unauthorized structures and violations of HOA regulations, completely oblivious to the fact that this wasn't her neighborhood, and more importantly, that the land she was inspecting was mine. I watched her from the porch, a mixture of amusement and disbelief on my face. Karen didn't even notice the private property, no trespassing signs I'd planted around the ranch. She was too busy taking pictures of my barn, measuring my fences, and scribbling notes like she was preparing a case against a criminal enterprise. I could see it in her eyes. She believed she was about to teach me a lesson. Then, as expected, she pulled out her phone and called the cops. "Hello, yes, this is Karen from the HOA. I'm reporting, suspicious activity on what appears to be someone else's property," she said, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. Couldn't help but chuckle. Suspicious activity? She was literally filming my perfectly legal barn and my livestock. Minutes later, a squad car pulled up. Karen waved her arms triumphantly, ready to assert her imagined authority. But as the officers stepped out, their expressions shifted from polite professionalism to awkward realization. One of them, a young deputy with a notepad, cleared his throat. "Ma'am, sir, could you confirm the property ownership?" he asked, looking at me. I set down my coffee, walked over, and smiled. "Sure, I own this land outright, the entire ranch, including all structures and pastures. Have a look at the deed if you like." Karen's jaw literally dropped. She went pale, fumbling with her phone, muttering about, "There must be a mistake." There was no mistake. She had been calling the authorities on the landowner herself, a fact she had somehow failed to research before acting. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The deputies were kind enough to politely explain to her that HOA regulations do not extend beyond the boundaries of her tiny neighborhood, and certainly not onto a 500-acre ranch owned by a private citizen. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to reconcile her image of power with the reality of the situation. But it was too late. The damage to her ego was irreversible. As Karen tried to insist on some kind of investigation, I gestured to my K9 patrols, who were watching her every move with alert curiosity. "They're friendly," I said, "but they take trespassing seriously." That was the final straw. Karen turned, muttered something about contacting the HOA board, and fled down the driveway, her clipboard abandoned like a flag of surrender. The deputies, trying not to laugh, assured me they would leave the matter alone. I waved them off, returning to my porch with my coffee, as my dogs resumed their patrol and the cattle grazed undisturbed. The morning sun was higher now, the air warm and golden, and I felt that rare, satisfying mix of amusement and triumph. Karen had tried to assert authority where none existed, and in doing so had revealed just how little she knew about the land or about me. By noon, the story had already started circulating in the neighborhood. Rumors flew of Karen being banished from the ranch she thought she could police. Meanwhile, I took a long ride across my property, enjoying the serene beauty and the knowledge that my ranch, and my peace, remained entirely under my control. Karen had learned a valuable lesson that day. Never mistake entitlement for ownership. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, I sat back on the porch once more, coffee in hand, smiling at the thought of her frantic calls to the HOA board, trying to explain what had gone wrong. The ranch was quiet again, my dogs at my side, my cattle calm, and all was exactly as it should be. HOA Karen had underestimated me, and the land had reminded her and everyone else who really held the power.